Let's discuss more now with former Republican presidential candidate and Texas Congressman Will Hurd. He's backing Nikki Haley in the race. Congressman, thanks so much for being here. Great to see you. Let me just start by asking this. I mean, is it time for Nikki Haley to drop out?
Absolutely not. Four states have had the chance to have a real choice. We're going to see 21 states over the next 10 days. Going to the polls. They deserve to have a real choice as well, not some Soviet era election where you only have one person. As your reporter at the top of the segment said, and we're still getting, Ambassador Haley is still getting donations in 24 hours after the polls closed in South Carolina. She raised more than $1 million. These are from Americans all over the country that want to return to normalcy. It's not normal to have an open border. It's not normal to spend almost $60 million on your legal fees. Right?
Yeah.
This is 40% of Americans. We've seen this in the last couple elections, want something different. And we know, Jim, you've covered this a lot. 70% of Americans that vote in general election want somebody other than Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And as we get to Super Tuesday, those people are going to have a chance of a real choice and someone who we can be proud of and who recognizes her role.
Well, but let me ask you this. I mean, what you're saying, I mean, a lot of people would agree with what you're saying, but in the Republican Party, it appears to be ride or die with Donald Trump. I mean, just in the last several days, he compared his legal woes to the prejudice that some African Americans have faced in the legal system, claiming they see him as a victim of discrimination. Let's listen to this.
I got indicted a second time, and a third time, and a fourth time. And a lot of people said that that's why the black people like me, because they have been hurt so badly and discriminated against. And they actually viewed me as I'm being discriminated against. The mugshot, we've all seen the mugshot. And you know who embraced it more than anybody else? The black population. It's incredible. You see black people walking around with my mugshot.
Well, he's saying bonkers stuff like this all the time. I mean, if somebody on a park bench said this to you, you'd get up and move. But he says this stuff, and he's way out in front in the Republican contest here. I mean, Nikki Haley, she can hang in there, but what is your reaction to what Trump said there?
Well, what my reaction to what Trump said is absolutely ridiculous, obviously. And guess what? When Joe Biden cuts that into an ad and runs that in Georgia, in Michigan, and places around the country, these gaffes are going to continue. You know, we talk a lot about Joe Biden's age. You know, Donald Trump is getting up there too, and the more he starts having to show up, he's been ducking. This is one of the reasons he's ducked doing a debate with Ambassador Haley, is he knows that these kind of things are going to continue, and what's going to lead to his demise in November. This is another reason why Ambassador Haley should stay in the race.
But what's happening in the party where there's so many? Well, I'm sorry, we have to go, but why are so many Republicans in your party overlooking things like that, what he said the other night about black voters, about African Americans in this country, that they would somehow sympathize? It just boggles the mind.
Look, I think people are more concerned with staying in power than saying what's right. They're more interested in going along than having ideological consistency, and that's one of the troubling things that I've seen during my political career. But unfortunately, Americans want someone who's ideologically consistent, and that's why you're seeing Ambassador Haley have 40% and growing.
All right, Will Hurd, we'll continue the conversation. Hey, thanks for coming on this first edition of the program on weekdays. Will, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Let's discuss more now with CNN political commentator, Democratic strategist Maria Cardona, CNN political commentator, Republican strategist Alice Stewart. Maria and Alice are hosts of the podcast Hot Mics from Left to Right, and we're frequent guests on the weekend edition of this program. I feel like it's like we're in a Vegas casino, and you know there are no windows. They're pumping in the oxygen.
And we're here again.
I just got cleaned out at the craps table.
Money,
yeah, it just feels like we're just going to do this like it were the weekend.
Exactly.
But anyway, but the producer will yell at my ear because there's not enough time. But let me start with this. I mean, Alice, Nikki Haley had this double-digit loss, but there is another storyline that Donald Trump, you know, he was not, he was not a picture of strength coming out of South Carolina, it seems, this weekend. In deep red South Carolina, almost 4 in 10 Republicans they're not on board.
Yeah, that's not a good sign.
Yeah.
And look, as Nikki Haley has said, when 4 in 10 people in South Carolina are looking for a choice, that sends a stark message. And that's why she is continuing to stay in this race. And look, as we've heard, since South Carolina, she's raised $1 million in small dollar donors, and that goes a long way. When you're running a lean, mean campaign machine, you don't need all kinds of money to keep the wheels on the track and keep things moving. And that's what she explicitly plans to do. And look, you look at the delegate map. To win the GOP nomination, you need 1,215 delegates. Right now, Donald Trump only has 110.
Right.
Nikki Haley has 20. So from the long game standpoint, there is a lot of ground game between 110 delegates and the 1,215 necessary. Look, the reality is, while we're still in the double digits with Nikki Haley and the delegate math might be difficult, her determination to provide a choice for change is strong, and there's a lot of people that are still listening to her.
Well, no, there's no question about it. And Maria, I want to get to some other big news happening this morning. Ronna McDaniel just announced she's stepping down as the head of the RNC. This comes on the heels of the CPAC gathering over the weekend where, I mean, Steve Bannon gave a very disturbing speech. Let's listen to some parts of that.
Media, I want you to suck on this. I want the White House to suck on this. You lost in 2020. Donald Trump is the legitimate president of the United States. Trump won. Trump won. Trump won. And on November 5th, to drive the vermin out of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Biden, you and your crime family are nothing but trash.
I mean, Will Hurd was just saying a few moments ago you could bottle what Trump said the other night to black voters and put that in a campaign ad.
Yeah.
Do you want to put Steve Bannon in a campaign?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And I guarantee you that is already happening. The ad makers are very busy. They have a lot of content from this past weekend. But this, I think, underscores the choice that we have. And I think the reason why Nikki Haley is staying in, because she's right that there are a lot of voters within the GOP that are not happy with Donald Trump. And I agree with Nikki Haley in what she said in South Carolina. Donald Trump cannot beat Joe Biden. And that is part of the reason, because this election is going to be about a contrast. If it is Donald Trump against Joe Biden is a decent president who has had historic accomplishments. He's going to boost the economy for everyone, protect our rights and freedoms. One of the other things that we didn't play is somebody else talking about how the GOP with Trump at the helm is going to finish destroying our democracy. And that's going to be a huge, huge message going into the 24 election.
You know, it's interesting you bring that up, Marie, because one of the things that I heard talking to people this weekend is this IVF issue. People are really concerned about that, Alice, that I mean, this is another example of people worried about their rights being taken away and unintended consequences of the Roe decision being overturned.
Well, you've heard across the board from Republicans weighing in on this issue that Republicans and conservatives are pro-life, and IVF is an important way for many families and many couples to have children, and they support the idea of having IVF. You're not hearing anyone in the Republican Party say that they do not support IVF, and that is a consistent message across the board. Even we heard Donald Trump say the same. If I can push back on my dear friend Maria in terms of Joe Biden will be so easy to win. Look, the majority of Americans are frustrated with the economy. They're certainly concerned about the border. They are certainly concerned about public safety. They are certainly concerned about jobs. And Joe Biden is underwater with approval on the issues, not to mention the fact they are concerned about his age and his stability and
but it's going to be a choice. It's going to be a choice.
That's right.
And
That's right.
This IVF, I mean, there's so many families who rely on this.
That is exactly right.
It's unbelievable. I mean, everybody's got a friend who.
That's exactly right.
Or relative.
You already saw what happened when the Supreme Court, then the state Supreme Court, said that an embryo is a person. Those clinics in that state shut down. That is going to take away the ability for so many families who are desperate to have kids to be able to do so. Yeah. And so this is going to, yet again, front and center, going to be an issue in the election. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy because we live in a very divided electorate.
Right.
But when your choice is about whether you have the choice and the freedom and the liberty to make decisions, personal, intimate decisions about your family, and someone is going to take that away, you're going to vote for the person who's going to protect those freedoms.